Good morning. We're the team of professionales made of Arrazola, Margain, Marcela, Sarai, Cruz, García, Andrea, Luna, Delgado, Carlos, Isaac, Sánchez, Flores, Jesús, Eduardo, y Vázquez, Ramírez, Xóchitl. In this exhibition, we will talk about Chapultepec from pre-Hispanic times to the 20th century. Chapultepec was considered a sacred place, and like many other places, it has legends. One of these is the entrance to the underworld of the cave of Sincarco. It is said that in this cave, the Toltec king Huemac went from Tula to Chapultepec to end his life. Sometime later, Moctezuma also wanted to do the same, but Huemac appeared and told him that he had to face the consequences and did not allow him to pass directly to the underworld. History of Chapultepec Castle, pre-Hispanic. The forest of Chapultepec has a history that goes back 3,000 years. Ceramic pieces and murals from the pre-classic period are testimonies that they used about the fried cedars on the shores of Lake Texcoco during the classic period, around the first millennium of our era. It was occupied by the Teotihuacans, and later on, after years 1000, it was inhabited by the Toltecs. In the post-classic period, at the rise of the Mexican at the beginning of the 14th century, the Tepanecs of Azcapotzalco dominated this territory. The Mexica occupied it on different occasions during their migration. They stopped for a short time at Chapultepec until they were expelled by the neighboring Charcas and Xochimilcas. In 1325, after Mexico Tenochtitlan was founded, the Mexica considered Chapultepec as a sacred place and a strategic site due to the springs that supply drinking water to the capital of the empire. Later in 1428, the Nezahualcóyotl Tlatoani of Texcoco ordered the construction on a place as well as the chairman of the fauna and flora of the site. Chapultepec has special value for the Mexica due to its location and its springs. The top to the height where the castle now stands was an ideal place to study the movement of the stars, so an astronomical measuring instruments was erected. The knowledge produced from the observation made was probably used to define the orientation of cities and their buildings. In front of the observatory, there was a teocalli that the Mexica weighed together with two small sintels at the base of the height. The other hand is geological characteristics related to the gods of weather and rain. This lake was a strategic and sacred place. The springs of Chapultepec were vital for the people of Tenochtitlan. The people of Tenochtitlan, because the water of Lake Texcoco was surrounding the city and the islet that said enough fight for the human consumption. To conserve the water from these springs, pools were built. Later to carry to Tenochtitlan, an aqueduct of reed, stone, and mud was built. The work was carried out by Nezahualcóyotl, the lord of Texcoco, who ordained the right to live in Chapultepec because he didn't change for the work. The aqueduct was so important to the city that it was key during the Spanish conquest. After weeks of fighting, Hernán Cortés Hernán Cortés blockaded the flow of the aqueduct. Sea lack of drinking water contributed to the delayed defeat of the Tenochtitlan.
Hi everyone, I am talking about background of the Castillo de Chapultepec. This construction dates back to 1530 when Charles I of Spain declared the Chapultepec forest as a property of Mexico City. Since then, the viceroys of New Spain frequent this place to stroll, rest, hunt bears, hares, and rabbits. During the mandate of Luis de Velasco y Ruiz de Alarcón, a place was built one of the suburbs of Chapultepec that would serve for the next couple of centuries as a temporary loading place for the viceroys. Before their arrival to the new Spanish capital, although it would also be used in entertainment events. After suffering serious damage from the explosion of an early powder magazine in the mid-18th century, the site was abandoned despite an initiative by the Spanish crown to use it as the prison of the Acordado. The building remained abandoned and very deteriorated until 1833, when it was established as the seat of the Hero Military College, which was inaugurated in 1843. Regarding this choice, Manuel González Pedraza opined, in this kind of school, there is no room for mediocrity. It is necessary to aspire to perfection. Near the capital, there is a building whose premises are suitable for the direction of a desire that will give honor to the nation. During this period, the tower called Caballero Alto was built, which gave the site the appearance of a fortress and influenced its classification as a castle. It is worth mentioning that a pre-Hispanic temple dedicated to Jesús, an hermitage in honor of San Miguel Arcángel, had previously been erected to the site. In 1839, after the visit to Chapultepec, the chronicler Erskine English gave the following description of the castle which she called. It is known as most Persian historic site of which the capital can boast. Although it was initially only used as summer residence, in 1896, Diaz and his wife Carmen began to use compound as their main domicile. The castle continued to be presidential residence during the Mexican Revolution, housing figures like Francisco Madero, Venustiano Carranza, and Álvaro Obregón. In total, 14 Mexican presidents lived in this castle. The architectural background, the castle was built during the years 1778 and 1788 on the foundation and all residents of Moctezuma II. It was in 1785 which Viceroy Bernardo de Galvez, who he ordered of reconstruction of the castle to become this home. The engineer Francisco Vanvitelli was put in charge of carrying out necessary works until the final design of Castillo de Chapultepec was archived. After that, Bamitelis de Aperture, the architect Manuel Agustín Mascaro, and continue with the work which was processing at a good pace, at a good place. Throughout history, it has been used for a various purposes, includes as a warehouse and also a military academy. It has also been used as the residence of various presidents. It has also suffered from neglect in various periods of the history. During the history, Castillo de Chapultepec, it has undergone enlargements and architectural remodeling of the main buildings. In the present, the Castillo de Chapultepec, we can see an observatory tower and modern design. It was first to be installed in Mexico City. In the year 1876, it was an addition to the Castillo de Chapultepec. Despite the effort of the engineers to build more and more strong castle, the Battle of September in 1847 destroyed the most of García de Chapultepec. It remained in despair until 1939, when the President of the Republic ordained the transformation of the castle and subsequent conversion into a historical museum. In 1944, it has been the home of the National Museum of Mexican History with 19 exhibition halls. The architectural layouts it made for several countries, halls, large halls, and several gardens, including the Alcázar Garden. In its architectural style, we find a modern design. It begins when it was styled considered a place. In 1846, the architects Julius Hoffman and Carl Gangel and Carlos Schaffer were hired to give it a neoclassical style in its architecture, creating a contrast with a part of the Castillo de Chapultepec that had a Baroque style. Finally, in one of the reconstructions, the facade was clean of ornaments to have a neoclassical style, and it entirely.
Now I'm going to tell you about the beginning of its construction. Its origin dates back to the Viceroyalty of New Spain, which covered almost of Central America, part of North America, and the Caribbean islands. It was built on the ruins of Tenochtitlan. Hernán Cortés wanted to keep the forest and the height of Chapultepec without much success, because in 1530, Emperor Carlos V declared property of Mexico City. The temple, which was at the top of the hill, was replaced by a hermitage dedicated to San Miguel Arcángel. The first viceroys used this place as a place to rest, hunt with animals, take walks in the forest, and other recreational activities. Until 1590, when Viceroy Luis de Velasco ordered construct a recreational place on the slope of the hill. Later, in 1624, another viceroys, Rodrigo Pacheco y Osorio, gave it a more dynamic use, this time as a place for elegant parties and entertainment. Until in the middle of the 18th century, a power cat exploded very close to there. So the place was severely damaged, so they planned to turn it into a prison. But it was eventually abandoned. In 1784, the viceroys Matias de Galvez decided to build a new house of rest, but this time on the top of the mountain next to the old Hermitage, away from the insects and a spectacular view of the territories. The land preparation work began, but the design execution as such advanced very slowly, since at the end of that year, only was a wall built bordering the place where was the Hermitage located. The viceroys died in mysterious circumstances 6 months after the war began and doesn't see much built. Bernardo de Galvez, his son, continues with the construction by locating the new palace to the west of the plateau walled garden with a viewpoint to the east. However, works spent in 1785. 7 years later, the house was selected as a possible headquarters of the General Archive of the Kingdom of New Spain, but it was not made. So the site was sold to the City Council of Mexico City in 1806. Its doors, windows, and fittings were sold in early 19th century. And after the War of Independence, the building deteriorated further. And finally, in 1819, an earthquake left it in a state of complete ruin until in 1833. The Mexican government declared it in the headquarters of the military college.
Will they you about the different architecture distribution that Castillo Chapultepec had throughout time? The first distribution is the military college, which 1833, when decision was made to convert the abandoned Chapultepec Palace into headquarters of the military college. In 1841, reconstruction of the building began. Among the adaptation made to the building was construction on highest part of the hill of Tower or Caballero Alto, which gave it appearance of fortress. It was then that it began to call castle. Years later, this construction was occupied for first time as the residence of the Mexican executive power. Miguel Marrón, a former student of the military college, chose the castle as the president resident during his period as interim president of the conservative Senate. During his stay, he made some adjustment to building to make it habitable, such as the construction of the new rooms on the second floor on the Alcázar and the south balustrade. Subsequently, in the time of the Imperium, the Alcázar at Duquer is present and appears appearance when the Austrian Archduke Maximiliano de Hamburgo and his wife, the Belgian Princess Carlota Amalia, resident of the castle between 1864 and 1867 during the Second French Intervention. The building was fit out the place by Mexican architect Ramon Rodriguez, a former student of the military college, and the garden were residents by Austrian botanist William Necto. According to Carlota, it was doing more than Max had. As the work progressed, furniture, pianos, porcelains, and silver tableware, only pins with parts of the imperial court tapices, table cooks, table line, and glass arrived for Europe to make Alcázar red place. Maximiliano and Carlota chose the room on the first floor facing east toward Mexico City like Texcoco and the Isla Cihuat and Popocatépetl volcanoes, which is why they ordered the construction of the panoramic terrace in front of the three rooms. Now, in the Porfiriato period in 1816A, the first National Astronomical Observation was assembled in Castillo Chapultepec, for which building was conditioning bounds again, especially equipment was installed. The telescope was placed in the Caballero Alto, for which dome was a dome tower. In addition, new rooms and two sentry boxes were built in 1803. The observation was moved to town of Tacubaya, Southern. The castle called Gaines again become military college as well as the summer residence of Porfirio Diaz. Diaz interpret the building to the showcase for Mexico artists and technology progress, partly because it is frequented by foreigners. He installed, for example, a large stained glass window on the east terrace or of the Alcázar upper floor, which we still preserve today. Elevator, including on that took people who formed the base of Will, and Violin Alley, a fashionable games among the wealthy class in whose house is first cinema exhibition in Mexico was held in 1896. On other, and the President Diaz decided to turn surrounding the castle into park in the Sidens roads, and streams were lined out supple, botanical garden and kiosk were installed an artificial light crate. Finally, about distribution of the Chapultepec in 20th century, when in 1916, President Venustiano Carranza ordered demolition of the building of somewhere of the college, so that the Alcázar wall be more visible. It's the word where it installed of the offices federal government and president resident consecutive. President maintain these at current util the government of the Alberto Rodriguez. In 1919, 1939, President Lázaro Cárdenas declared the installation of the National Museum of the Story in the Castillo de Chapultepec, declared national in the site. Thank you very much.
The architectural style. The Chapultepec Castle is located in the hillside of the Chapultepec, while ostentating a quite dynamic structure. Its conformity is a great perpetual style which emphasizes in the time, for example, the marble and correlates with my windows, which provides glimpses of the European royal residence. The castle is considered the national wealth for the great content which today rewards the elements that is him are found. It destabilizes a union between the design of the forest essence and the provincial and the republican engineering. In the castle of the Chapultepec of the present time, we can see of the observatory tower which a modern design. It's first that styled in the Mexico City in the year the 1876. It's once more addition to the Chapultepec Castle. Despite the effort and the engines and the bull and more of the strong castle that the battle of the September the 1847 destroying has the Chapultepec Castle and remaining his port condition until 1939 with the President of the Republic ordained the transformation of the castle and the subsequent conversion into an historical museum. Since 1944, it's the headquarters of the National Museum of the History of the Mexico. With 19 exhibition halls in the interior, we find several palaces, halls, large halls, and several gardens, including Alcazar Garden. Its architectural style, while in fine modern design, is behind when wild style considered at the palace. In 1846, the architects Julius Hofmann, Carl Gangolf Kaiser, and Carlos Schaeffer were hired to give them the neoclassical style. It's in the architecture. Creating contrast with a part of the Chapultepec Castle that had a Baroque style. Finally, in one of the reconstructions in the facade was uncleaned of the ornaments to have a neoclassical style. It's in entirety. The castle was very careful and elaborate in the time in the vessel of the New Spain, as late spreading dealing of the vessel. In the year of the 1863, Maximiliano admitted his official room, which dedicated himself to giving it a neoclassical style. 2 years later, Porfirio Diaz arranged to accommodate the official delivery and remained on the Chapultepec Castle has been perceived and the magnificence, the palace of the history. Since among forces and presidents and chiefs that they have their memory here. The fortresses of the Chapultepec has been considered a town at the age prices the treasure, which includes great engineering, starring with its marvelous and status. In the same way, enter in its floors, the ceilings and the railings, and with in the European style. This very old and the palace retiles in the majesty and style. As the forest structure is its an avant-garde profile, it begins when the idea at the royal house was still maintained. The castle has a great variety of the different ideas that were arriving through times and its remodeling, which had affect the architectural style. It was named by Aztecs and graded by Spaniards, graded by an Austrian emperor, and enlarged by Mexican revolutionary. It is the union of different techniques that over time has been modified for the integration of the spices and the meanings to the same castle, they contributing to the architectural style, which today can be seen the different variations of the modern architecture, in the which the ideas are provides access to the castle to be tourist place. Nowadays, it's now one of the main tourist centers of the Mexico City. They contemplate by its historical, the cultural, the social, and the artist, the richness, and the international level. The fact also experienced to the French and the canons revelates in the space of the central balcony in the some other mottings on the window decorations. The cruel or spirit of architectural. It is very not noticed and the architect's effort to the archer and the harmonious whole is selectively employing on the same theme that the general outliners of the essential motifs are the flankly derived from the French architecture, the express motifs inspired by aboriginal monuments, the other racial types, and of hall this to describe the maximum expression to the monumentalist that has much be outlines as be the way of the selling the modelings of the sculptures and the frank modern style that over to more synthetic and spiritual vision of the architectural form.